Hashem, a tremendous simcha to be learning Torah together. Welcome to all the guests. Welcome to guests all around the world. Gewaldige simcha. A tremendous pleasure. So Rav Moti said something beautiful to me last night. He said, every Torah in Likutei Moharan has a problem and then a solution. But Rav Nachman is addressing a problem and then a solution. It's not that there's 50 problems and then 50 solutions. There's a problem, there's an issue, and then there's one solution. Now that issue might have many bechinas to it. So in our Torah, that issue is Rebbe She'ein Hagum, that issue is Mishpat Me'ukel, that issue is Ashanim Sruchim, that issue is Girush Me'eretz Yisrael, that issue is Tzimtzum, that issue is Seichel Prati. Those are all the issues. And then there's one move, there's one tenuah. Then in Likutei Moharan, it's all about making one move. You just like make one little spiritual move, and you're already in the tikkun. So in the tikkun, the one solution is Ksav Yodeinu, is the tzaddik, is the neshama, is Soida Iber, is Seichel HaKoilel, is Chochmah Ilah, is Emunis Chachamim, is Or. But that's all one move. It's not like, let me make a cheshbon, like there's like an Or, and then like this, and Or means, Chochmah Ilah, and I'm starting to go through it in like a sequential way. It's all one thing. It's all in one move. You go from all the challenge of your life to now the solution. That's why the Rebbe here is like a pharmacy. It's like one pill, and it's a move. Yes?
Is that move always the same?
No, every Torah is a different move. Now, what we wanted to speak today about is that within this move, Rabbeinu includes Isaiah 53. That's part of the move. And there's a move here. And here the move, the tzaddik is making a move here. And therefore it's very important, I feel, to address this because the Chevra love speaking about Isaiah 53. This is like the topic. I could be talking about tzitzis, and all of a sudden the chaver is like Isaiah 53. It's a very nice, parak in Isaiah. And I think it's important as we're going to go through the psukim together. And by the way, this is going to be a two-part. We're going to be speaking today now, and then we're going to have a lot more opportunity to share at 2:15 in Israel time. And the Chevers welcome a lot of questions. And we're inviting people around the world to ask all the questions. Anything you want to speak about. Because here also in the Torah of Nachman, it's all about writing Sfarim. Like the Rebbe here says. The Sefer brings some Eov, which is also... Now it's important to point out, Eov was an Orthodox rabbi. So was Isaiah. We forget about that. Sometimes people say, are you into like rabbinic Judaism? Like, yeah, like Rabbi Isaiah. And he's a great rabbi. He's very chashuv. He's a prophet. And an Orthodox rabbi. So, Reb Nachman also is an Orthodox rabbi. The Sefer Kosev Ish Rivi. If somebody disagrees, let them write a book. Let them write a book of the topic that they disagree with. And then there could be a discourse that can be back and forth on this topic. And instead of the response only being Isaiah 53, why don't we now expand on what you mean by that, as we're going to go through the Psukim. Now, more background information before we get into the verses is that Isaiah is unique. And that Isaiah is unique in that it is written essentially 90% poetry. If you just open a random section in Yeshayahu, for the most part, you will not really know what's flying. It's like, yeah, actually, I tried that recently. And I had no idea what's going on. It's happening right now, before my eyes. So, the nature of such is because it's poetry, is that you need to see things in context, my dear friends. So that's very, very important. So point number one that we're sharing, and it's so nice, if people can also share where they're writing from, it's always a pleasure to know. It's amazing, Chevra writing from all over the world. Nifla. So, very important. Point number one. Well, number one, Yeshayahu is an Orthodox rabbi. Important to keep that context in mind. He believes in the Torah. He believes in Torah Shebechsav and Torah Shebal Peh. Number two, Isaiah is writing in poetry. And therefore, when you have poetry, you need to see the full context of what's being written to really understand the flow of the poetry. Very, very crucial to understand anything in Yeshayahu. Unlike if a pasuk from Vayikra, Leviticus 11, fell out of the sky, speaking about this animal is kosher, and this animal split hooves, and this animal has this. So if that just flew out of the sky, and you now had that verse, and you were lost in the jungle, you could make sense of what would be a kosher animal and what would not be a kosher animal. Because it's written very literal, easy to read. Sefer Joshua, Yoshua, very easy to read. Sequential, it moves in a very relatable format, which is not the case of Isaiah 53, or any place in Isaiah for the most part, 90% plus, is that it has to be seen in full context. So that's very, very important. So to understand what is going on in Isaiah 53, there's another thing we have to understand. Where did the chapter breakings come from? Was the chapter breakings, like Genesis 12? Was Genesis 12 as a number 12 given at Mount Sinai?
No.
It was not. The chapter breakings was a later institution,
Not a Jewish one.
not from the Yidden. Now, why do we use it? It's very convenient, because if I want to reference you somewhere in the Torah, and I say Genesis 12, for the most part, people don't even know. Like you just say Lech Lecha. Oh, Lech Lecha. Yeah, now we're done. That's the one, like the ones who bless you will be blessed. Oh yeah, Lech Lecha. Genesis 12 is like, where's that? But having numbers is actually very helpful, because it helps you reference what we're talking about, where we're at together. But we did not make those numberings. What is, though, from the Masorah, what is from Har Sinai, is what's called the Peis and the Samachs, which is the chapter breakings. When you open up a Sefer Torah, my friends, have you ever noticed that there are breaks in the actual text? They're called a pericope. I know it's a funny name, a pericope. A pericope is the natural chapter break as it exists in the Torah. You ever seen Oz Yoshir? It has many breaks. The formatting of the text is very relevant because it's teaching you, and this is from Har Sinai, it's teaching you that this is the relevant section that the prophet or that the Torah wanted us to focus on as one full body of content. Now, wouldn't you notice that Isaiah 53 doesn't begin at a break? The break is actually 3 verses earlier. The break is 3 verses earlier. You guys see that? So when you go there, you notice that there's a break 3 verses before Isaiah 53. So if I want to understand Isaiah, would it not make sense to learn it from the perspective of Rabbi Isaiah, the Orthodox rabbi, who made the break 3 verses earlier, beginning with Hine Yaskil Avdi. Hine Yaskil Avdi. Okay, so far so good? That makes sense. As opposed to saying Isaiah 53, we'll start there. And yes, Reb Nachman is quoting from Isaiah 53. And the part that he's quoting is that tzaddikim still receive machloikis, even though they have perfect emunas chachamim. Why do they have machloikis? Because they're bearing all of the challenge of the generation, and they're holding and bearing that weight. So they're taking on and helping us fix our emunas chachamim. So we're going to get to how Reb Nachman is taking this verse. But first we have to learn it from Yeshayahu. Everybody good so far? So what do we see so far? We saw that number one, we need to understand that when you're dealing with poetry, you need to see full context. We understand that when we're dealing with understanding the prophet, we want to understand from the context of the prophet himself. We also understand that the prophet, when he's dividing up the sections, we should really take that seriously and not just go to a place which seemingly a number was put on, but it doesn't really begin there. It begins with Hine Yaskil Avdi. So far, so good? Okay, B'siyavta Shema. There's also going to be tremendous, thank you so much for all the positive feedback from all the chevra here. You should know that today at 2:15 we'll have a lot of question and answer, and please just pump up the questions. We're happy to address them B'siyavta Shema. So, let's go in now. So everybody have it? 42:13. So the prophet begins. Hine Yaskil Avdi. Behold, Yaskil Avdi. Yaskil is an interesting word. Yaskil means to be matzliach. Yaskil Avdi. Mitzudas David, who inyan atzlacha. Ki amatzliach bedavar nira ki ilo osa maaseu behaskel. Somebody who's successful in something, we look at him like he did something that had like haskala. There was something, and which is also interesting, because Yaskil is a big part of the Torah here. Seichel aproti, seichel hakoilo. The whole of Samach Aleph has a lot of seichel. Seichel aproti, seichel hakoilo. So Yaskil Avdi. Now who is Avdi? Behold, Yaskil, my servant. My servant will be successful. Well, who is the servant, my friends? Now, fascinating. Is servant in singular or plural? Singular. So who's the servant? Who is Avdi? So, if you want to understand who the prophet is speaking about, who do you think is the best source of understanding who the prophet is speaking about? I would even say Rashi is very good, but I would even say stronger than Rashi. The prophet himself. What about Rabbi Isaiah himself? Do we see anywhere else him speaking about Avdi? I mean, I would say rationally that makes the most sense. Who is Avdi? So for this, I made like almost 50 markings in my Isaiah here. Then let's look at some of them. When Yeshayahu refers to Avdi, who are we speaking about? Who is Avdi? Who is this prophet? Who is this servant that we're speaking about? So, go to 41:8. Isaiah 41:8. And the prophet says, Ve'ata Yisrael Avdi. The Jewish nation, my servant, singular. Meaning, because Isaiah is speaking prophetically and poetically, he's referring to the entire nation of Yisrael in the singular. Why? Because we all have one destiny. Not only 41:8, go to 43:10 and 11. And you start to see a picture that's getting formed. 43:10. Ve'atem eidai ne'um Hashem. And you, the Jewish nation, are my witnesses. Ve'avdi. Again, avdi in the singular. And my servant. Singular. Who is Avdi? The Jewish nation. You see it, Rabbi Isaiah. Once again, let's go further. 44:1. Here's a good one. The prophet himself. Ve'ata shma Yaakov Avdi. Listen, O Jacob, Avdi, Ve'Yisrael, Bacharti Boy. The nation of Israel, Bacharti Boy, I have chosen. I'm saying, if you want to understand Isaiah 53, then you got to understand Isaiah 52, and Isaiah 54, and Isaiah 41, and Isaiah 37. It's all part of the one word of the prophet. It makes sense, right? And therefore it's very much important that if we want to understand a section of the prophet, we have to see the whole picture. That's for Mendel. We have to see the whole story. We have to mamish see things very wide. That's not it.
Is the chapter that all the Christians use for...
That's right. So we're just learning from Rabbi Isaiah what are the Pesukim are actually talking about.
Well, they're saying that Avdi is
That's right.
There's a concept for that.
That's right. So we're just pointing out, let's look at the Pesukim. Let's see what the Pesukim are indicating, and let's see what's actually happening in Isaiah 53. So far, so good? Let's continue. 45:4. Laman Avdi Yaakov, for the sake of my servant, again singular, Yaakov, V'Yisrael Bechiri, the chosen one. Again, linking it to the Jewish nation. Once again, Avdi referring to the entire nation. Moving forward. 48:20. Se'u me Bovel, Birchu, me Kasdim bekol Rina, Hagidu, Hashmiu Zois, Hoitziyua ad Kitsea Aretz, Imru Gol Hashem, Avdo Yaakov. The nation of Yaakov. Again, Avdo, singular. Let's go now, 49:3. Vayomer li Avdi Ato, Yisrael, Asher B'cha Espar. Beautiful. What a beautiful passage. That God is saying that through the nation of Israel, in our most exalted state, not Hollywood, through our most exalted state, through us living up to the stature of what it means to be a Jew, God says, I will become beautified, kaviyachal, through you. You will be that which represents the beauty of everything that I want in this world through you, the nation of Israel, in the singular, if we're connected to that destiny. Moving on. Oh, here's beautiful. Now we get to 49:6. This is interesting. This is actually the mandate. Now we're in the mandate. of what does the Jew have to do. 49:6. It's 49:3, 49:6. Vayomer nakel miyoischa li eved. And he said, it was insufficient that you be a servant for me, only to raise up the tribes of Jacob and restore the ruins of Israel. I will make you a light for the nations, so that my salvation may extend to the ends of the earth. Now we have a mission. Now Avdi has a mission. What's the mission of Avdi, which is the entirety of the Jewish nation? To be a light to the nations. That's Avdi. So we see over and over that if I want to understand Yeshayahu, because that's what I'm into. So now, I've read from the beginning of Isaiah, I'm moving all the way through. So now I arrive at a pericope, which is 52:13, which includes 53. And it begins, Hina Yaskil Avdi. My servant will be Matzliach. My servant will be successful. Who is the servant? Who is the servant? Klal Yisrael. What does Rashi say there? Who is Avdi? So it's beautiful. Also, we have to understand who's speaking. This is also something that's missed. Is we always need to know who's the speaker in the prophet. So, because it begins, the pericope begins, Hina Yaskil Avdi. And we already saw from context many times that Avdi is the entire nation of Klal Yisrael. So Rashi says, Hina Yaskil Avdi, Hina ba'achris hayomim. What are we speaking about? These are the messianic prophecies. These are the messianic prophecies. We're going to talk about this also later at 2:15. Because what is the job of Mashiach? What does he have to accomplish? One thing, he has to be a light to the nations. He has to bring people home. There needs to be a tshuva movement. There needs to be a hatzlacha in doing that. So now we're moving into the messianic section of Yeshayahu, where the prophet is saying, Hine Yaskil Avdi. But who's speaking? So we're going to see a very important point. There's not that many psukim, that many verses that go from 52:13 through 53, and then 53 ends, not that long later, with verse 12. There's not that many verses. Here I have to point out. And this will be a very, very big, this helps people tremendously when they want to learn Isaiah 53. Who's the speaker? The speaker from 52:13 to 53:1, not including 1, is the prophet speaking in the name of God. The prophet speaking in the name of God is describing who Avdi is, and essentially the way that the nations of the world looked at the Jewish people through the millennia. The approach that the nations of the world looked at Avdi, and we already saw from Rabbi Isaiah, an Orthodox rabbi, that Avdi is the nation of Israel, the way they looked at us. From 53, number 1, we see in the Messianic era that the speaker becomes the kings of the nations. That the kings of the nations, speaking in the time of Mashiach, the kings of the nations are now responding to the way that they looked at the Jewish nation, and they're commenting, but with a messianic perspective. They're trying to see what was our approach to the Jewish people, essentially also understanding Jewish suffering. There's not a sob story here. There's just trying to understand Jewish suffering. And they're going through a tshuva experience, the kings of the world, going through a tshuva experience of this was what we thought, and this is where we were in error. Then, from verse 53:10 to 53:12, the prophet then speaks again in the name of God and says that the full unfolding will happen when the Jews do X, and if they also do tshuva for the things that happen. Okay, so that's the division of also understanding, bless you, who the speaker is. Now, if you only start at Isaiah 53, if you only start there at verse 1, you miss the first speaker, God. That's not a good idea to take God out of that pericope. Also, when you see that the prophet wrote it in such a way, it's so obvious that this is a section. So far, so good? So now we're back inside. We're starting from 52:13 because that's the way the prophet himself divided it up. And therefore, if any seminary of learning wants to teach 53 Isaiah, make sure they start from 52:13. And better, they start from Isaiah 1. That's the best place to start from. And many people, if you say, do you know what Isaiah 1's all about? Say, no, I don't know. I didn't really see that part. Well, wouldn't it make sense to see the whole story? So far, so good? So now we're inside. Hina yaskil avdi. So now God is saying, this is in the Messianic era, yaskil avdi, the Jewish nation will be matzliach. Rashi, ba'achras hayamim yatzliach avdi Yaakov tzadikim shabo. The righteous. In the end of days, the nation of Klal Yisrael will be matzliach, which also means the world will see that there's something beautiful about the Jews. Until then, they don't see that. They're missing something. We're also missing something. We haven't arrived at our stature, but we're guaranteed in the end of days that the nations of the world will see something beautiful. And the prophet goes on, Yarum, they will become exalted, Venisa, lifted up, Vegova me'oid, and very, very high and elevated. What a beautiful verse. That the nation of Israel will come back to its former stature and glory. A time of beauty, of greatness, that the world will see what we're really all about, which is love and peace and goodness and wisdom. Am navon v'chacham, a nation, a mamleches kohenim v'goy kodesh, a nation of priests, a nation that just wants to share love and light with the world and help guide humanity, an or lagoyim, a light to the nations, and they'll see that our whole mission, the whole reason why we've been holding on to the Torah of God, is just to share it with humanity. They'll see that in the end. And then now, the prophet goes on. Kasher shamamu alecha rabim. In the way that so many were shamamu alecha, they were astonished. This is God speaking about the way that the nations looked at the Jewish people. Remember, this is happening in the Messianic era. And God is commenting in the way that they looked at us. And look what they said. Kain mishchas me'ish mar'eu. They said that this nation is so lowly. The Jew. Big nose. Look at the language. Mishchas me'ish. He's like black, and his appearance is not even of a man. The
comments could give you more suggestions.
I'm sure, yes. I'm sure there'll be more suggestions coming in. The prophet's already saying that in the end, the nations are going to say, we were so... You have to understand it. The prophet is saying, in the way that we were astonished, that when we looked at this people, it was like, this is not even a man. These people are so lowly. They're not even mortal. V'toyaru mibnei adam. And they don't even have the visage to be human. These are such lowly people.
And they're called us the Untermensch.
What does that mean?
Like below, subhuman.
Okay, yeah, so they're not even human. They lack they're just, meaning in the way, kasher, in the way that we thought that they were so lowly, this is an important point, in the same way that we thought that the Jew was so lowly, Cain, this is important. God is commenting stuff. Remember this. This is God speaking. Cain yaze goyim rabim alav. So too, there'll be an astonishment the opposite direction. In the way that we thought that the Jew was so low and so subhuman, that astonishment that we were so against the Jew, in that same way, when we see the Jew return to his glory, we will be amazed at how amazing of a nation this is. The prophet is using the astonishment in both ways. He's saying, in the way that we were so astonished about how lowly this people were, we're astonished at just how amazing they became. It's going to be mikotza el hakotza, from one extreme to the other extreme. Yeah, Natan Ezra?
So I was going to say, for the most part, being an Orthodox Jew, as you say, has been a very beautiful experience for me, and I truly see all the good in it, Baruch Hashem. If this is actually what's going to happen, if the people at the top of the world are going to look at the Jewish people and be like, wow, what a beautiful nation this, is it because Hashem is just going to reveal that we're the chosen people in a more revealed way, or is it because there's actually like a klipa in front of them at the current moment that they can't see what's good with the Jewish people, even if we logically prove it to them?
So we're going to get to that. The prophet's going to go through that. What is the astonishment? Where is it coming from? So let's see the words of the prophet. Kain yaze goyim rabim alav. So Kain yaze means that the nations will now exclaim. Yazeh is interesting. It means like it's going to start dripping into their languaging. They're going to start now exclaiming, Yikbitsu melochem piyim. And at the same time, the kings will close their mouths. They'll, in the way, there's a kasher Cain. Just like, so too. Just like we were so astonished about the lowliness of this people. How just subhuman. And just the Jews. And all that. So too, we're going to be astonished. And so much so that the kings will shut their mouths. They'll be like, all right. I guess that's also like a shutting them out. I don't think it actually has to mean like, but just mute. They won't be able to speak. Ki asher loy super lahem ra'u va'asher loy shamu hisboinanu. This is so beautiful. What's the translation? Ki asher loy super lahem ra'u. Because they will see that which had never been told to them. Meaning they had thought the Jew was the worst. And it was never told to them. I really believe, and I think for the thousands of Chevra here, I really believe that nobody has really told the world what we're really all about. I don't think many of the Chevra ever came to Likutei Cafe and they know that everything that we're all about is helping people be happy and fulfilled and have a relationship with the one God, and that we could unify together. And at the base of Mikdash is a base tefillah yikar l'kol ha'amim, a place of prayer, a house of prayer for all the nations. That we're all about unity consciousness. No, they're going to say nobody really told us what you guys are all about. We're just like secretly doing stuff. And again, I'm saying I don't mean like Hollywood. I don't mean the bad actors. And it's important. And I think the world right now is focused on the bad actors. But what's happening is that they're lumping the bad actors together with the whole Jewish nation. And that's a big problem. That's just a mistake. And the prophet is pointing out at the end of the days, they're going to be able to discern the difference. That yeah, there were some bad faith actors. But who the nation of Israel is, what we stand for. That the prophet himself is saying, Yisrael b'chois spoir. that through you, through what you represent, through the core mission of the Jewish nation, the world becomes a very beautiful place. Exactly the opposite of what the world thinks. But Hashem is speaking in the name of the nations now. They're going to say, nobody ever told us who these people are. We didn't know. That which we never heard before, we're going to start thinking about. Nobody told us what you guys are all about. We had no idea. Yeah.
Wasn't the whole world aware when the Jews got taken out of Egypt? Wasn't there like a widespread noise that everyone was like, whoa?
There was an awareness, but things quickly fade. And the prophet is speaking after that. And he's speaking about there's going to be a period of exile. There's going to be a long galut. There's going to be a long galus. It's going to be a long exile. And through that exile, this is going to be the approach that the world will have, and they won't know. The world will not know.
And not only has it been thousands of years, but we're not really at that stature anymore. We need to get back to
Exactly.
where we were back then.
And when we get back to that stature, this is talking about in the time of Mashiach. When we get back to that stature, the nations of the world are going to say, these people are amazing. Look what, and I don't just mean Nobel Peace Prizes. That's very nice, but I'm talking about bringing the world into God consciousness. Not just like we made ways and drip irrigation. Like, shkoya, that's amazing. Okay, those are great inventions. That's great. It helps me to get to my destination, to have ways. And drip irrigation is wonderful. It gives life to places where otherwise they couldn't grow food. That's very, very important. I'm not diminishing that. But I'm saying that's not what they're going to be celebrating. It would include that, but that's not going to be the ultimate praise of the Jewish nation. It's going to be that these are a nation of princes, of those that are here to bring the world to the light of God. And they're going to say, we didn't know of this. We never heard of this. Now, this is God speaking prophetically, that this is what the nations are going to say. Remember, we want to understand Isaiah 53. This is the build-up in the way that he divided up, that you should see this as one pericope, one section that is going to move forward. Now we begin Isaiah 53. But it had to start with that introduction. What do we move to in Isaiah 53? What now is the movement of the verses? And for our dear friends, that there's literally 1,000 questions coming in, and we're going to speak about this. And at 2:15, we invite everybody back. Come at 2:15. We're going to speak, and we'll start going through all the wonderful questions. 2:15. So that's in how many hours from now? Not that many hours. So if you're in the States, so get a little bit of sleep and then come back and join us, and we can go through. We're going to speak about, I see questions from Justin about chosen people. We'll speak all about, I'm very happy to address that. So come at 2:15 Israel time. And we can speak about that. 7:15 a.m. I know it's early for many people. But if you're on the West Coast, that's very early. And if you're in Australia, that's not early at all. So come and join us if you're in England or wherever. It's always nice when people write where they're writing from. Somebody's asking me if I believe in the Talmud. I do. You know who else believes in the Talmud? Rabbi Isaiah. He was an Orthodox rabbi. So you have to understand the background of Rabbi Isaiah is a Talmudic rabbi. He is in the world of Talmudic scholarship and a prophet. So he believes in the Talmud. So if you believe in Isaiah, so he believes in the Talmud. So I would suggest to think about that. That's usually a point that people do not consider. That Rabbi Isaiah also believes in the Talmud. So yes, we do believe in the Talmud. Okay, so now back to us. So now, let's begin 53. So it says like this. Now the prophet's going on. And now the switch moves to who? To the nations of the world. Just to see a little bit of Rashi. Ken yaza goyim rabim. Ken ata gam hu tegaber yodoi. The yoda es karnois ha'akom asher ziru. That we're going to see. The way Rashi is learning that these despised Jewish people, in the end of days, are going to come back to their brilliance, and that the power that the world was trying to put over the nation of Israel, the world will see that the power of light, the power of goodness, of love, is going to be stronger than that power. And there's going to be an acknowledgement. Yikbetsu, Yiskaru Piyem Miroiv Timoyim. That the nations, the kings will close their mouths because they're going to be in awe. Ki kavoid asher loy super lahem al shum odem ro'u bo. This is so beautiful, Rashi. So important. If you want to understand Isaiah, you need to know Rashi. That Rashi says the honor that nobody ever told them of what the nation of Israel represents, the kavod of the nation, they now see. They're seeing it. Something nobody told us about this people. Nobody really told us who they are, what they represent. And this is a beautiful honor, and we're seeing it with our own eyes. His boinanu istaklu. We're seeing it. Seeing means like a deep seeing. So now the prophet moves to the voice of the nations. Now we're in the Messianic era. Okay, this is a prophetic Messianic storyline. We're in now the nations of the world, the kings of the nations. Which means the presidents, the prime minister, the biggest people. All the World Economic Forum, the whole Ganze Olam, the big people that are moving the world. The G7, everything. The biggest players in the world are now speaking. Okay, so they say like this. Mi hemen lishmua seinu. Who would ever believed what we are actually experiencing now? This that we are hearing, this that we're now, and God is foretold this, but now it's them speaking. So God is saying what they're going to be speaking. Who would have ever believed what we are seeing before our eyes? Which really means that the beauty and the honor and the dignity and the stature of Klal Yisrael start returning, that we could have never imagined it, like we saw before, the timoim, that we was, in the same way we thought there was so nothing, and we were so, but to me there could be such a nobody, lowly people. In that opposite extreme, we can't even believe just how special, beautiful this nation is. It's funny, people always like to poke fun of yo rabbi, what's with your haircut? Things like that. What's with your funny cosmic dental floss? Ha ha ha. So, things like that. Coming out of your pants. So, they're like, it's so strange. So in the way that there's so much timon, and the opposite, they're going to say, wow, we had no idea that payas meant that. That's awesome. We had no idea what tzitzis were really about. That's beautiful. And the prophet describes the nations of the world holding on to our tzitzis. Isn't that an amazing thing? Grabbing onto the tzitzis and saying, teach us about God. And the prophet is prophesying that the nations are going to be saying this. Who could have believed what we are now experiencing? Uzuroya Hashem al mi niglasa. And that beautiful languaging from the prophet, Zuroya Hashem, which means the connection. God, so to speak, revealing his arm. God revealing himself. Who would have believed that God is revealing himself to the world but through the nation of Israel? And they're betumia. They can't even believe this. So this is the nation speaking then. Pasuk Beis. Vayal kayonek lefanav. A double language. V'kashoyrish me'eretz tzia. Loi sayar. Loi v'loi hodar. Like a sapling. Meaning, formerly, this nation was a sapling, growing out of arid, non-life-giving soil, sickly, but now we see that they're growing into this mighty tree. It's like a wonderment. This whole section is the wonderment. Rashi, ha'am hazeh lifnei baloi hagedula hazois am shafal haya me'od. Before the redemption, this nation was very, very low. V'ola me'elav keyonik me'yoinekes me'ilanas. It became like this mighty, mighty tree. So we see this like movement, that everything was the complete not being favorable, is so the vision of who the nation of Klal Yisrael is being so lowly, to such an extreme movement the other direction, of just the beauty and this and what we represent, and not having any idea what that was, and them admitting that we had no idea. Nobody told us. We've never seen such a thing before. We're just reading the verses. We're just reading the verses.
Don't shoot the messenger.
Pardon?
Don't shoot the messenger.
If you do, then you're making problems with Isaiah. So, then if we can get into a conversation of Isaiah, let's at least learn up Isaiah. Let's speak about what the prophet is saying, and let's speak about it on his terms, as opposed to me putting something that I want to say. Let's see what the prophet is saying. So what have we seen so far? Okay, this is it's really part 2, but there's going to be other parts to this, my friends. We've seen that understanding Yeshayahu means seeing it in context. It means seeing all of Yeshayahu. It means the first part of the story, understanding that if I want to understand who Avdi is, so I need to go back into Yeshayahu. I also need to understand that when Yeshayahu broke up this section, he broke it up with a pericope that began 3 verses earlier in 52:13, which is beginning of God prophesizing what will happen, and then the nations then saying that this is happening. It's moving the speaker. And now we're moving into the storyline here. And there's more here, there's a lot more here. This is going to take us time to go through. We should be zoicha, my dear friends. We're going to do a lot. We're going to do some more questions later today. We invite everybody, b'siyat d'shmai, to join us, to come back. We should be zoicha mamish to the great or, to learn the words of the prophets, to really connect, to really be honest with ourselves, to open up. I want to know the words of the prophets. I want to really be connected to the living God. I want to really understand what Yeshayahu is really saying to me. I want to be connected to that. And I want to be connected to the totality of the words of the prophets. Not just one section. I want to see everything. And with the help of heaven, b'siyat d'shmaya, we'll be connected to the great, great light of Torah, to the great light of Reb Nachman, who, to understand, like we mentioned at the beginning, every Torah in Likutei Moharan has one issue and a solution. And if anything came into the Torah, it must be that it's either mitzad shlili, the problem, or chiyuvi, the solution. So Hashem, guide me. How do I see the solution? Where is Reb Nachman bringing these psukim? And we haven't gotten to the psukim that he's dealing with. Why is he bringing this for me here within Emunis Chachamim? That the whole Torah is about connecting back to the Mesorah and not to the Rebbe Sheina Haga. And I want to connect to the tzaddikim. I want to connect to the Chacham inside of myself, to believe in myself, which Reb Nachman goes to in this Torah. To really know that there's a light shining within me, that's also believing in the Emunah, believing that I have Chachma inside of me. And it's not a stira to Emunas Chacham. They go together. They're both part of the journey of going back to the Chachma Ilah, to the Seichel HaKolim, to me being able to get out of the Ashanim Suruchim and out of the Tzimtzumim. Because we don't want to live in all the Tzimtzumim. We want the Tzimtzumim to go back, upstream, back to the Seichel HaKolim, back to the Even Shasiyah, back to Kodesh HaKadoshim. So we should be zoyed to this, my dear friends. May Hashem guide us in our learning. May Hashem guide us in our connection, guide us in Bechol Derechei Doeyu, to to be connected to God all the time in everything that we do, to go with emunah pshuta, to go with tamimis, tamim tiyum Hashem Elokeichem, to go mamish with Anochi Hashem Elokecha, asher etzisichem eretz Mitzrayim, to go with lo yeh lecha Elohim acher mal ponai, to go with not having any false gods, but only connect to the one. Echad yochad meyuchad haya hoiv v'yeh, and with that we'll hear mamish, the footsteps of Mashiach mamish getting closer and closer. We'll start to hear the sound of the tikka b'shofar gadol l'cheruseinu. We'll start hearing the great shofar blast that is getting ready to burst forth in the world. We should be zoich to mamish, be connected to Hashem, to the kibbutz galius ma'ar b'kamfei sa'aretz v'mashir tzidkeinu b'mherav yemenu amen ve'amen. Amen. Awasheinu matolagenu manayim go'alei. Hope to see everybody later today for the questions and answers. Thank you for somebody mentioning Snoop Dogg. I'm interested in how you think that's connected to Torah Samach Aleph. All the best.